When you introduce a Jojo fan who's played quite a bit of teamfight tactics to the bullet-heaven genre, stand survivors is the inevitable result. Instead of buying, merging, and upgrading various weapons, you instead collect souls to buy, merge, and upgrade various stands, then sit back and watch as they destroy everything on the screen. Now, like many games in the genre, the gameplay is pretty straightforward. You start with a room, has some breakable objects, enemies spawn, and your stands will be attacking automatically. As you level up, you get stronger. You can merge stands to gain more powerful versions, you can unlock new rooms to gain powerful blessings, you can craft items to help give you extra stats, and of course, you can get some meta progression, talents, and new characters. And so the stands themselves are what makes stand survivors stand out. However, they're also a little bit of a game's Achilles heel, which is to say, because the stands appear around your character and they have a lot of particle effects, it can get pretty hectic, so seeing your character clearly enough to dodge enemy telegraphs can be rather challenging. Luckily, most of the time you can overcome this by simply building more defenses, health, armor, regeneration, lifesteal. But it is a little bit frustrating when you're right on the edge of doing something and you get hit a few too many times because your stand blocked your vision yet again. Collect the souls of your enemies and use them to buy stands from the shop. Now, if you've ever played an autobattler and rolled for characters to then combine into better versions of themselves, yep, stands work the same way. So if you buy a couple of green stands, if they are two of the same, you can combine them from a 1-star to a 2-star, then combine 2 2-stars into a 3-star. But you can also merge different types of stands to then create more powerful versions, which are blue and purple respectively. The blue ones usually gain some sort of powerful bonus ability. The purple ones do far more damage, gain far more powerful abilities, and very often leave you with permanent stats every time their ability triggers. However, it's going to take a lot of stands, and therefore a lot of souls, to combine them all the way up to purple, meaning you have to go out of your way to pay attention and target specific stands. You can't just build everything. In fact, early on you're going to be struggling to make more than a couple of purple stands. Later on, you will be able to get 8, but only if you go really far and only on really, really good runs. And this was great, because this is everything I like about auto-battler games without the part that I dislike, which is to say the auto-battling itself. I don't know, I'm just not a big fan of watching a bunch of units fight for me in a pseudo-RTS, which is a little bit weird because that's kind of what this entire genre is, and I like it a lot. I don't know, people's tastes are weird. I don't have to explain myself. I like what I like. By the way, the initial combination, you're going to have to go out of your way to do it, but after you've unlocked a stand for the first time through combination, you can set it as a synthesis target, and then the game will automatically highlight for you all the pieces that you need to combine. You could say that your goal when going through the progression systems is to get purple stands, the game's equivalent of a star platinum. And it is absolutely a blast to get 4 or 5 purple stands and just watch them going to town. You might have a werewolf guy that's shooting a bunch of projectiles, or a werewolf guy that howls and buffs you and uses his claws, or an elf archer that just rains death down from above, a spearman that goes off and attacks stuff on his own, or just a gunship because, yeah, apparently gunship is also a stand in this game. In short, building around all the superpowered stands is really fun, and if you're looking for scaling, just try to get things that are somewhat compatible, i.e. if you're scaling physical, go with physical stands, if you're scaling magical, go with magical stands, and if you're scaling both, well, that's what hybrid stands are for. Now, another core progression system is items. You can think of these as stats that you get to customize throughout your run. Well, sort of, because it takes ore to craft the items, and the stats are random, or at the very least the items you get and their bonus stats are random. Keep a special eye out for any items that are immediately locked as you craft them, because those are the ones with the bonus stats. And most of these are going to be exactly what you expect, so a weapon is probably going to have damage stats, boots are going to make you go faster, and armor is going to have defensive stats. If you craft 2 of the same type of item, you can combine them into an item that's 1 tier higher. So white items become green, green become blue, blue become purple, purple become orange, and orange become red. Which also kind of gives you a mini item chase in every game when you really want 6 red tier items. But it's going to take a lot of ore and a lot of resources and maybe even a little bit of luck to combine enough things to get to that point. I actually really like this system because it means you can customize your stats to augment your build. If you are building for magic damage, you'll want a lot of things that give magic damage, magic pen, magic crit, and magic crit damage. On the other hand, if you have a bunch of stands with really cool abilities, which you probably will, maybe look out for a pair of gloves that gives you a high amount of cooldown reduction. And if you're going for physical stands, look for, well, swords and hammers. Things that will increase your physical attack, physical pen, physical crit, all that fun stuff. This is also good because you can kind of pivot things mid-run. If you've been building towards magic but realized that, no, actually, you don't want to go magic, and maybe you have a character that's actually compatible with both, you can do that. You can start stacking physical items. You can take physical blessings as you open up new rooms, and while it might not be ideal, especially if you didn't do it soon enough, it certainly is an option, and I have actually saved runs that weren't going well a couple times, just because the shop was not offering me the stands that I wanted, and I made a quick pivot in the early game. You can get ore by breaking a bunch of the rocks found in various rooms, or by getting some of the blacksmith stands. Every time their ability goes off, they generate you just a little bit of ore, allowing you to craft even more items. Then you have golden experience. Experience passively increases character power. Now, you also accumulate a different type of metaprogression experience which you use to level up your character, unlocking permanent bonuses, usually stat growth and in some cases direct attacks. Gold, on the other hand, opens you new rooms, giving you a blessing, think passive bonuses, that can either be a big single-time stat bump or stat growth over time. The growth stats are particularly useful if you take them early on in your run because they continue growing as the timer advances. But having an extra room also means more resources, because more monster nests spawn, more chests, more ore. As you travel between rooms, you will get stronger. In addition to this, you can use gold to reroll items at the forge, making it quite valuable. So maybe consider the Tycoon or Salaryman stands to generate you more money throughout your run. Now, at 8 and 12 minutes, you get to fight one of the game's bosses. Each stage has its own unique encounters, and most of them follow a pretty similar attack pattern. You rotate between waves of projectiles, some sort of cleave, and some sort of charge. In short, dodge all the red outlines, and you're probably going to win. For each of the bosses, you have 4 minutes to kill them, so the DPS checks can be quite tight, especially on higher difficulties, and especially with the Fire Zone, because that boss is a phoenix, and yes, on higher difficulties it does revive itself, meaning you effectively have to kill it twice while dodging all of its bullshit. I wouldn't say the bosses here are anything too special, but they definitely do a good job of challenging your build. If you construct your stands and find synergies, you're going to have a pretty good time and kill the bosses reasonably quickly. In fact, you might even use the boss as a little bit of a timer extension if there's a challenge you're trying to complete. On the other hand, if you have built poorly, if you just kind of built random stuff and hoped it worked out, the boss is going to be an immovable force that puts an end to your run. But of course, this is a roguelike, so the end of your run is not the end of everything, as that is when you get to redistribute some meta progression. This comes in a couple forms. First is characters. To unlock all the characters except for Muscle, who is the first one, you'll need to complete a specific task, basically get a stat to a high enough level. At first, this will seem quite challenging. Once you figure out a little bit more about the game, how to combine items, what to target, how to make builds, it will actually be quite easy to unlock all the characters. But in addition to this, you need to get the character to level 10 to fully maximize their potential, because not all of their abilities are available from the start. Which also means you're going to have to spend a significant amount of time grinding EXP before you can really use and maximize the character. Which is why I would advise that you stick to one character for at least a good chunk of time, get it to level 10, farm out enough EXP to get the next one to level 10, move on to that character, so on and so forth. And then you have talents, which you get by collecting green crystals. And you convert those into talent points and use those to unlock bonuses. Now you do get 3 talent point layouts, which are kind of useful early on, as some characters want to be magic, some characters want to be physical, and some characters want to be both. But if you play enough, you can actually just unlock everything. I only use one layout now because my layout is I have everything. Personally, I found it really helpful, especially in the early game, to focus on the green resource tree, because having things like more gold, ore, and souls helps you a lot. Maybe get a little bit of movement speed or life and regen in the defense tree, and get either a little bit of magical damage, and especially crit, or physical damage, and especially crit, in the offensive tree, but put most of your points over into resources to really help snowball your runs. Also, as you complete the tree, you get purple talents, which are on the far right side. Those give rerolls. They are especially OP, as they are the only way to unlock access to the powerful orange legendary blessings. So as soon as you unlock that, it really is a night and day difference. I have to say, this meta progression is not my preferred style in a game like this, because it's all just stats and it doesn't change that much about how you play. So overall, I'd say this is okay, but it was definitely a bit grindy for me. Especially because most of these are numeric bonuses. They don't change the mechanics or make the gameplay more interesting. Don't get me wrong, the gameplay is quite interesting. I really like the progression loop of stands and items and maximizing each other. But does that really matter if I just do like 30% more damage? I mean, sure, I'll get farther, but doing 30% more damage is not in and of itself interesting. I much prefer meta-progression systems, like you see in, say, Potato, where you unlock new items enabling new builds, or meta-progression systems that lead to branching choices. So if, let's just say, I could specialize all of my stands through meta-progression, and one of them focuses them more into single target, and the other focuses them into AoE, and I get to make a choice for each stand, that kind of stuff would be really cool. That's what I'm usually looking for when I am assessing meta-progression in these games. On the other hand, I did find that Stand Survivors has a good amount of replayability, because you have several different characters to play, you have a whole bunch of different stands to make, and there are 3 zones, each of which have 6 difficulties, each of which have 3 challenges. Some of these are pretty simple. They kind of boil down to play this character and win the map, and you'll be able to get it. Or just win the map on any character. Others are kind of ridiculous. Like get 1,000 ore on the hardest map in the game. I did it, took a couple tries, took kind of a cheesy build, was actually quite fun to do, and that sort of do a challenge kept me going again and again and again, because even though I had already won the map, I wanted all 3 challenges. I wanted to see how far I could push my builds, and you can even do another optional challenge beyond that, where you get to kill bosses repeatedly after you've cleared all the challenges for a map. This starts pretty simply with just a couple bosses, but it can get into massive 16 boss gauntlets, and if you're able to clear them all, oh boy, does that feel really, really good. Plus, especially the longer maps are really fun because you get to have 8 purple stands, and purple stands are OP, so that's 8 times the OP. Yeah, you finish that sentence in your head. And so if that's it, what's the verdict? First up, I like the room-based mechanics. Having the incentive to unlock new rooms and encouraging players to move between the rooms does help it feel less repetitive than the just walk in circles that does seem to be the genre norm. Now, in some cases, games use big procedural maps. That also works, but it can be pretty easy to feel like you're just wandering aimlessly. Here, you know the layout, you know the goal. Very often, you'll want to unlock a specific room, so I'd say that's pretty well done. On the other hand, progression within a run and builds is absolutely where the game shines. I like the stand system. It is everything I like about autobattler games without the part that I dislike, which is the, well, autobattler part. Plus, it is really satisfying to be able to put together the purple stands and watch them just unleash complete devastation. Like One Punch Master, pretty much one-shotting stuff, absolute blast. I would also say the replayability is great. The game does a very good job of providing different incentives for different players. If you really want to min-max and kill as many bosses as possible, there's an incentive for you. If you want to do a bunch of wacky stuff and complete challenges, there's an incentive for you. If you just want to be a completionist and grind out everything, there's 70 achievements, and some of them are very grindy, there are incentives for you. So in my opinion, this game does a very good job of providing goals to a lot of players with different motivations, which is why I've played it for just slightly under 60 hours as of the time of this review. On the other hand, I do think meta-progression is one area in which the game is a bit lacking. Because, yes, early on, there's a fair bit of customization, but the more you play, the less customization there is. Slowly, you just kind of unlock everything. So not only is the meta-progression itself all stats, it's quite grindy and unfortunately impactful enough that there are times where I felt like my challenges were kind of being gated behind the meta-progression. But the more I did it, the less choices I made with it, and I'd much rather have more choices open up as a game progresses. And so, in short, this is a good bullet heaven game. If you like bullet heavens, and you like the rolling per characters part of auto battlers, then you're probably going to enjoy this, and I would recommend it. Sure, I have some complaints. It's a little hard to see your character in between the stands, and yeah, the meta progression, a bit boring, a bit grindy. But the progression loop when you're in a game feels really, really good. Between the different zones, the bosses, and the challenges, there's quite a lot you can do in this game. And it's $8. I mean, who can complain about roughly 60 hours of gameplay for $8? Now, as a quick disclaimer, your time playing this game may vary, as may the price depending on your region. I do not guarantee that you will get 60 hours out of it, nor do I guarantee that it's $8. And so yeah, those are my thoughts on Stand Survivors. Originally, I checked out the demo for this game as part of my 10 games you probably haven't heard of on Steam, where I played through a bunch of demos during Steam Next. I had a lot of fun with it. As you can tell, I had so much fun that as soon as the game came out, I bought it. I played it for, well, quite a bit of time. Here I am giving my full thoughts. So if you're looking for something else to watch after this, maybe check out my Steam Next wrap-up because you probably haven't heard of the other 9 games on the list. Now, if a game does look interesting to you and you want to pick it up, I am going to be making a beginner's guide that should also be out shortly after this video. If it's already out, it'll be up in the card and down below. If not, coming soon, be sure to get subscribed and make sure to leave a like while you're down there. But with that said, that's going to be it for me today. So thank you very much for watching to the end. I'm glad you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.